I carried Grandma May's extra key on the same clip as my employee ID. Every time I bent over to unlock the clinic door, the metal rang against plastic, a little metronome that reminded me there was always something else that I was unlocking for somebody else. My name is Kay Weaver. I am 31 years old, and I balance other people's numbers for money as a bookkeeper in a physical therapy clinic on the county's south side. Columns do make sense to me. Due dates, bills, the pushy way a total makes out whether you want it to or not. My family is small and complex in the typical manner. Caleb, my brother, is 28. His wife, Isabel, recently turned 27. Mum, Rosalind, is 62. Dad, Herbert, is 64. When Grandma May died in January at 86, Dad became the executor. Probate came open in February and dragged along with the slow, courteous pace everyone cautioned us about. Caleb and Isabel moved into the bungalow, just until probate wraps, Mum said, as if having people around counted as presents. The county collects the property taxes in installments quarterly. This year they hit on February 1st and May 3rd. Mum asked me to pay the taxes current as we opened the estate account, and since the late fees are certain and avoidable, I enrolled my card in the county portal. 2 cycles for $874 each. There were several small bills, the kind that feel intimate until they don't. $300 to the plumber, Eli, to fix a rusty sink trap that had been dripping into the cabinet. $45 to Brian Woods, a neighbour I found on the neighbourhood page, for a pre-emption mow when the lawn started to look judgmental. The numbers added up. Taxes, plumber, grass. $2,093 total. I stored all receipts in a folder marked May, estate carry. The key was hanging around my neck because I was the one who opened the door for Eli and waited for the water to settle. Since I had the key, my lunch break consisted of errands. Unclogging a slow-moving toilet, checking the breaker when the dryer popped, changing a light bulb. I kept telling myself this was temporary. I kept telling myself Caleb and Isabel were camping, not moving in. Then came the last Wednesday of May. Roasted chicken, salad, pan of rice at Mom and Dad's. Dad questioned Caleb about job opportunities between bites. Mum kept pouring Isabel a glass of wine as if the wine might grease the evening. The AC groaned through the vent, as if trying to add its 2 cents to the conversation. Isabel ate voraciously. She didn't look up as she shoved her plate against me and grumbled, speaking to me like I was the furniture. Make yourself useful. Wood on ceramic, the sound that rested on my teeth. I stared at the blue blot of gravy on the lip as Caleb looked at me, then away. Mom did that face that one does when one would rather go away than call a thing by its name. Dad's fork paused, then went on. The room was hot like a house when everyone just pretends everything is fine. I put the plate back in front of Isabel once more. I am not the help, I told her. My voice was dead. I didn't have to scream for it to resonate like a small splash in a quiet tub. She rolled her eyes. Okay, wow. Mum called me by my name gently, the way she picks up a hot problem with a pot holder. Kate, she began, stern and gentle. I have to leave, I stood. Early morning tomorrow. In the car, I caught up on my breath. The key on the lanyard wrapped the dash, a nervous little beat. I thought about the last few months, the time I'd posted my card on the county site because Mom asked me and no one else had an available one, how I'd texted Caleb Eli's invoice and gotten a thumbs-up emoji as an answer to a check. Isabel's Instagram story about free rent with a winking face, like the house was a laughing joke she'd won. I took off my shoes at home, set the laptop on the kitchen table and opened the county portal. Numbers do not require guts, you just have to enter them. I turned off auto pay. I opened the electric and water accounts and pulled out my card, the one I'd put in temporarily, so lights wouldn't be turned off in the middle of name changes. I scrolled through my spreadsheet, May, estate carry, and wrote one last line at the bottom. May 29th, stopped all autopay related to car's card. I didn't text. I didn't write something that would come back to haunt me. I scribbled one extra reminder down for myself. June 1st. Email with totals and plan. Then I secured the lanyard with the spare key on a hook by the door instead of around my neck. The metal did not clang against anything. The silence was a decision. The next day I got to the clinic early before the first patient wheeled along the corridor. The clinic had the scent of coffee and disinfectant. I put the mug beside the keyboard, opened the spreadsheet, and drafted the email that I had vowed to myself that I would draft. Subject: May bungalow costs and the next steps. Action required by June 30th. I kept it plain and official, such as the way I write overdue bills at the office, dates, amounts, what's coming next. From June forward on, I will no longer pay any more house costs. Balance presently owed to me. Property tax, Feb 1. 874's property tax, May Vane. 874's plumber Eli Jackson, $300. Lawn, Brian Woods, $45. Total, $2,093. Please arrange to pay by plan by June 30th or in full on the 30th. Otherwise, I will ask Dad, in his role as executor, to rent the house at market rate on July 1st. There are receipts and invoices attached. CC, Mom, Dad. I read it twice in an empty office, the manner in which I read a notice that I might have to stand behind. Numbers do not need courage. Sending does. I sent the message to send itself at 8 a.m. on June 1st. Setting it up felt like a small runway. I closed a tab that had lingered too long. That was all. No fireworks, no showdown. Just a gentle digital ping, and then nothing. I brewed coffee and accessed the billing portal at the clinic. I spent the morning adjusting figures that were not mine, their co-pays, their past due balances, their minute errors. It was peaceful. For the first time, none of the errors were mine. At noon, I checked my email. No responses. That afternoon, I called the county clerk's office, half habit, half because I needed to know for sure the second property tax payment went through. The woman who answered spoke with the peaceful confidence of someone who records other people's choices all day long. Yes, she said, all through May is current. Then she added, the next statement will print out June 10th. Do you prefer to have that mailed to you or to the estate address? I hesitated. Then I spoke up. Send it to the estate address. When I hung up the phone, I realized how freeing those words were. They did not mean fewer headaches over paperwork. They meant the burden was shifting back where it belonged. That night, I was sitting on the couch with a bowl of soup and looking through social media. Isabel had uploaded a photo. The front porch of the bungalow bathed in dusk lighting, captioned, Home Sweet Home. The comments were full of hearts and so happy for you guys. I gazed at it for some time. Not angry, just done. The next morning, Caleb texted. Caleb, hey, got your email. Caleb, didn't realize you had payback for that content. Caleb, can we talk later? I glared at the screen and asked myself how often women like us, the competent, quiet ones, are treated as infinite resources. Others expect us to pay the bill, fix the drip, balance the books, and still smile in greeting. I typed deliberately, me. There is nothing to talk about. It's all in the email. He did not answer. 2 hours passed and Mum called. Her voice was all enswathed in the same nervous niceness that she always uses before telling me to undo something. Kay, sweetie, she started, I saw your message. I think Caleb and Isabel were just surprised. I let her say it. She used words like family and understanding, and how about all of us getting together Sunday night for dinner? When she finished, I said to her quietly, Mum, I'm not mad. I'm just done paying for everyone else's bills. There was enough silence between us for both of us to feel it. Then she exhaled slowly and said, "Okay." Not agreement, just acknowledgement. That weekend passed in a bland way. No dinner, no phone call. I mowed my own lawn, made the bed, and allowed silence to drop between us like a tenuous, filmy thread that need not be cut, but was left untrammeled. 7 days passed, and a letter from the county arrived. Notice of assessment change. Normally, I would have torn open something such as that at once. This time, I set it down with the title of The Estate of May Weaver and smiled. It was no longer mine. By mid-June, the silence had become routine. It wasn't disrupted anymore, just there. The manner in which the whir of the refrigerator in the kitchen made you remember that things just went on no matter if you were talking to anybody or not. Mom texted occasionally. A photo of the dog, a recipe that maybe you would be interested in, a coffee meme. I answered with monosyllabic replies, nice but distant. She did not push. Maybe she finally realized that to be kind doesn't necessarily mean that you do what the other person wants. Dad phoned once on a Thursday night. He didn't waste any time as usual. "Your mother told me you sent an email regarding the house," he said. "I did." "I read it," he said. "It was fair." And there it was. No guilt trip, no second guessing, just a silent acknowledgement that I had established a boundary and he respected it. For the first time in months, I felt like someone saw the difference between peacekeeping and peace. 2 days later, Caleb sent $500 on Zelle, no note, just the amount. I didn't reply. It wasn't sufficient to pay off the debt, but it was sufficient to remind me that responsibility had finally entered the room. Around that time, I started walking home from work, the kind of walks you don't count your steps or bother with distance. I'd walk by the park by the clinic, where kids played under the sprinklers, and old men fed the pigeons crumbs from paper bags. That's when I started thinking about Grandma May once more. How she never shouted, but how everyone always seemed to know where she was. Maybe that is what strength truly is. Not screaming, simply confidence. A few days later, Isabel posted another photo. This one of her and Caleb on the porch swing of the bungalow, bare feet, a glass of wine in her hand. The post stated, "Working hard or hardly working." I did not feel the bite I had expected. Instead, I felt space, not the cold kind, but the calm kind that appears when you finally stop standing in the middle of someone else's storm. The next morning, I opened my email and looked at the new tax notice from the county. It was to the estate of May Weaver. No car Weaver was to be seen on it. I grinned again, that quiet kind of grin that occurs when you know you've unwound yourself from something that used to feel permanent. Later on that evening, I added my spreadsheet one last time. In the notes column, beneath the balance due, I added June 15th, received partial payment, $500. And then I added a final line. No action required at this time. I closed the file and simply sat there for a moment, looking at the empty desktop. Sometimes there is peace without a bang. There is peace in nothing left to mend. The last week of June had long evenings and the kind of slow sunset that has you lingering outside just to hear for the crickets to start. By then, the tension between us all had evened out. Not healed exactly, but even. No new messages, no battle, just space. And space, I'd found, is sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself. On Sunday, Mum texted me finally whether I'd go over for dinner again. Her text was brief. Roast chicken, 6 p.m? Same meal as last time. I just sat there reading the text, not angrily, just thoughtful silence. Then I texted back, sure, I'll bring dessert. When I arrived, the table had the same appearance. Same blue plates, same hum of the AC vent. But something was different. Isabel smiled politely when she saw me. Caleb looked tired but softer somehow. Mum seemed relieved, though she kept busy at the counter to avoid saying the wrong thing. Dad gave me a small nod, his version of, "I'm proud of you." Dinner was quieter than usual, but it wasn't heavy. No one mentioned money or the house. We talked about small things, the weather, work, the new grocery store opening on Main. When I offered to clear the table, Isabel shook her head. "I've got it," she said to me. And she did. After dinner, I stepped out onto the porch. Cut grass and warm wood scented the air. For a moment, I could almost hear Grandma May humming, that steady, low tune she used to sing while washing dishes. I played my fingers over the lanyard key that still hung on my hook in my house. I hadn't thrown it away, not out of nostalgia, but respect. It reminded me of the line I'd finally drawn, and the peace of standing behind it. Laughter wafted through the screen door, small and genuine. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And maybe that is what family, not the people who never hurt you, but the ones who eventually figure out where you end and where they start. I looked out at the sky deepening from pink to blue and thought about how endings seldom look like we imagine. Sometimes they're not loud, sometimes they're just a quiet evening on a porch, the smell of chicken and hot air, and the sound of everyone learning to start over, together yet apart. And for the first time in far too long, I didn't feel like the savior, I just felt like me.